Good afternoon, everyone. This is Satyendra Rana, your host for the webinar. A very warm welcome to all of you. I'm Senior Manager at Birla Institute of Management Technology. I would like to introduce Ms. Joyna Kain-Potaka, who is moderating the sessions today. Ms. Joyna is Assistant Director General at International Crop Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics and Executive Director, Smart Food. Ms. Joyna is having experience with a number of multilateral international organizations and non-profits. She has worked in 6 countries and she is here in India for the last 8 years. May I now request Ms. Joyna to kindly take the event forward. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Satenda, and thanks everybody for joining. We've had an overwhelming number of registrations, about 1,500, and we can see people are clicking on all the time now as we talk. But it really reflects, it's quite exciting because it reflects the real, people are really looking for practical solutions, which is what this webinar is very much about. And I don't think any of the speakers will disappoint you in coming forward with practical solutions, very action-oriented, and real current examples of what we can do now. So first of all, just a few rules. We do have to inform you this is being recorded and then it will be available later. Please save all your questions to the very end after all the 3 speakers. And use the chat. So type in your questions and type in as you go so you don't forget them at the end. As speakers are finishing, type in your questions so that we can be collecting them to have them answered at the end. And if you want to, you're welcome to add your name and organization at the end of your question. So I'd like to get straight into this because we're going to keep to time. So Dr. Srinath Dixit is our first speaker. He's a principal scientist and the head of the ICRISAT Development Center. And that's a center that's focused on scaling out solutions on a large scale and very much science-backed agricultural solutions. So to do that, he leads a multidisciplinary team of hydrologists, agronomists, economists, and so on. And this is with ICRISAT, which is the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics. It's actually, as far as I'm aware, the only global organization with the headquarters in India, with the global headquarters in India. So, and we're very proud to be able to be based here. Srinath is going to start with, first of all, just a brief overview of how COVID is impacting agriculture in India, short, medium, and long term. But he's going to come back at the end with some real case studies of what's been happening with this scaling out in the COVID situation. So over to you, Srinath.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar on impact of COVID-19 on Indian agriculture, reimagining the way forward. And this is through a collective effort of government, corporate, and CSOs. Let me first put the context in perspective. We all know today everyone who eats and breathes is associated and is concerned about agriculture. We have traversed a long way from mere food production, emphasis on mere food production, to sustainable production in the recent past. New Deal has come for rain-fed farming, while the Green Revolution agriculture focused mainly on agriculture in irrigated areas, and in rain-fed areas, it is essentially knowledge-based intensive agriculture. And agriculture, as we all know, is the engine for rural growth. Not for the engine for rural growth, it is an engine for the growth in other sectors as well. Excuse me. And while we address agriculture, we also address a large gamut of social, economic, and environmental and technological issues and constraints. And agriculture to progress and affect other sectors will need well-informed policy and scaling up of the research for development. And those of us who have been witnessing the challenges induced due to COVID, especially in agriculture, we know that there was suddenly, when the lockdown was announced, there was absolutely all human activity was cut down, came to nil. This led to a lot of wage loss for those who depended on wage earnings. And at a later time, this also led to huge influx of migrant forces back into the village. This also affected the harvest of the rabi crops and their marketing and their processing, primary processing as well, primarily because of the workforce scarcity. And also there was high wages of whatever that was available. The wages also got increased, and whenever the lockdown slowly started getting opened up, we still saw there was a huge demand for the wage force, and there were issues for transport, and that everything was in haywire, and everything had to be really once again brought back onto the track. And processing as well was completely shut down. All those machinery which had to be shut down overnight will have to be once again brought back to functioning. And transportation, which also had stopped not only within the states, interstate and all that, that really took a lot of time because there was a huge confusion within and outside the state transportation. And the workforce scarcity was also felt due to the people who left the places and migrated back into the villages, and those that were available were also scared of going into public places and work. And the lockdown and the later opening up of gradual opening also led to either no business hours or less business hours. And the consumer needs were also very much restricted. Everyone came back to the basics, just survival mode. And this also resulted in the disruption of all kinds of supply chains that we were seeing so very like working like a well-oiled machine prior to that. And consumers were also hard hit because of the skyrocketing prices, scarcity, and also the fear of going into the market and fetching the things, whatever they wanted. Even now, that fear hasn't completely gone. And particularly for agriculture, we saw there was a big challenge for the supply of farm inputs, animal feeds, availability of tools for taking up immediate agricultural operations, and above all, farm labor. And with this, the farm operations were severely affected. And now we see that there are more mouths to be fed through agriculture in rural areas than there were some 3 months ago. So this has added additional burden on the carrying capacity of the limited resources all these villages had. And as a result, right now we're still facing problems with primary tillage, seedbed preparation. And if the situation doesn't improve much, we will also see issues with harvesting, threshing of the kharif crops. We did face this with rabi crops as well. And there has been a government response. In fact, many of the experts say that it was kind of an impetus given by the COVID. COVID rather forced some of those reforms and some of those push, some of that investment, some of that attention that it always longed for was actually possible, because agriculture was seen as the one that needs to be really overhauled and brought back to the tracks, if at all some kind of normalcy has to return. We see that agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries, and the infrastructure and other capacity building activities and certain reforms in the government sector were immediately responded to by the government. About 30,000 crore additional emergency working capital was released, 2 lakh crore credit boost to 2.5 crore farmers, and minimum support price for several commodities. A new scheme of interest subversion was announced, and about 1 lakh crore agri infrastructure fund was created for farm gate infrastructure. And there There are 10,000 crore schemes for formalization of micro food enterprises. All these impetus started coming in. Well,
Srinath, I'll have to ask you to
yes, this is the last slide in the first part. And fisheries and agricultural policy also came into, caught the attention. And I will only be setting this larger picture now. I am now handing it over before I return once again to Balasubramani, Dr. Balasubramani, who will give you complete details of the schemes and the other things the government has taken initiative for reviving agriculture sector. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Srinath. And good to see the issues. We've got to look across the whole value chain and across so many sectors. And important to see the consumer is a key part in that as well. So I'd love to welcome now Dr. Bala Subramani. So Dr. Bala is with Manage, which is an extremely well-known organisation, the Government of India National Institute for Extension Management. Bala is Director of Climate Change and Adaptation. So I guess, Bala, you're used to adapting to climate change. Now you've got to adapt to COVID and implement a whole new lot of ways of working there. So Bala is going to be presenting, very importantly, what central and state government initiatives have been initiated as a result of COVID, which is extremely important because the core part of this webinar is about how we converge our work. So knowing what programs are available are critical. So over to you, Bala.
Thank you, Joanna. Greetings to all my panelists. Sorry. Is it visible? Is it visible? My slide is visible?
It is visible, sir.
It's good.
Yeah. So greetings to all the delegates. Thank you for introduction. And government, both central and state government made a lot of intervention to facilitate the farmer to come out from this adversity. Initially, they have given guidelines to continue agriculture sector as normal, and also they created awareness to the farmers about the COVID situation, and they allowed all the support services to continue during the COVID situation. And many states, they have created a helpline 24/7, facilitating the farmer to support whatever the information required. And also KVKs and SAUs, they joined together with the department, and they were building the capacity of the farmer through various ICT platforms. And also during the immediately after lockdown, there was a problem of harvesting. So department were doing mapping of all farm machineries available, and wherever there is excess farm machineries, they were giving passes and diverting the machineries to the wherever there is a scarcity. And they fixed model prices for hiring machine not more than 2,500 per acre, because they wanted to avoid the exploitation from the farmers. And many times State Department talked to the machinery owners, and they encouraged to start the customizing center wherever possible. And with regard to market intervention, as a special case, a purchase officer went to villages, and they have given coupons for staggered procurement. And also many places they increase the number of procurement center in order to avoid the to ensure this social distancing. And also they also given supported with the transport, and also many places gunny bags, and all these cases they release the payment within 2 to 3 days. Take for example, in case of Andhra Pradesh, they engaged all the procurement agencies like Agmark Fed, Civil Supplies Department, Department of Agriculture. Maximum extent they procured all the rabi crops, so much quantities with all the MSP rates worth of crores of rupees, and increasing so many number of procurement centers. Take for example, even paddy alone, 1,433 centers have been started, and some commodity even they have given more than MSP rate. for encouraging the farmers. And also, in case of procurement, compare for last year from May 20th to June 12th, they procured only 33.9 million tons of wheat. The same period, this year with all this difficulty, they could able to procure 37.7 million tons in spite of all the difficulty to the worth of 74,300 crore worth of purchase they made with regard to non-perishables. And in case of perishable commodity, there was a lot of problem with the farmer to sell the commodities. But fortunately, many states they have promoted farmers collectives with different names and farms like self-help groups and also farmer producers organized OPCOMs. Various farmers collectives are there. Every state government they engage the farmer collectives to procure the fruits and vegetables directly from the farmer and also distributed through various consumers. And many states even they exported the commodity with the help of these FEOs and also self-help groups. And some states even they connected farmers through Zomato and Swiggy to the buyers. And during that time there was no train, but many states they engaged a special logistic train to transport surplus fruits and vegetables and other cereals from one place to other place, like even Renigunda to there is Andhra Pradesh to Delhi, Hyderabad to Amritsar, Bangalore to Delhi, like that, so that many of these products have distributed without any problem. Both consumer and farmers also got benefit out of it. And with regard to agri input delivery, because farmers were finding it difficult to purchase the farm inputs, so even village level officers were engaged to collect the intent from the farmers, and also it is given to the nearest procurement center, that is agri center, and their centers have distributed the inputs directly to the farmer. And some state they distributed the seeds on free of cost, and some state with subsidy at the rate of 30 to 50%. Even Kerala being the consumer state, even they distributed the fruits and vegetable seedlings to the residents in the urban and peri-urban area to encourage them to produce on their own. And even PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, during this COVID situation, 2 months period only, 18,700 crore is transferred to the farmers in all the across the countries. So it helped them to give some liquidity to procure some input for the next season. By considering this, even many state department also they give an additional fund to the farmers. Other support system, many cooperative they deferred collecting payments of loans. Some the states they have given an exemption of market cess and also storage charges. Some states they have given interest-free loans, and even milk procurement. The many cooperatives they allowed non-members also to sell their milk. Normally 360 lakh per day they used to procure, but during that period per day 560 lakh liters are procured, so 200 lakh liter extra, so that has been converted into milk powder. So many other support system also done. This is all temporary measures to address the current situation. In addition to that, the central government they come out with 11 measures, very important measure to address infrastructure, logistic and also capacity building with giving some financial support. So one such is 1 lakh crore is allocated for strengthening the farm gate infrastructure, wherein lot of farm infrastructure like warehouse, cold chain, these kind of structures will be coming. So in order to reduce the post-harvest losses. Similarly, 10,000 crore is earmarked to promote the local product. So promote post-harvesting structures and take it to the global. So wherein there is opportunity for 2 lakh entrepreneurs are expected, and in fact this will have a rippling effect also. And another 220,000 crore is earmarked to promote fisheries and also aquaculture, where it is expected that around 10 lakh production within 5 years, and there are a lot of employment generation up to 55 lakhs, and export to the extent of doubling the export. Similarly, like fisheries, other sunshine sectors like animal husbandry and dairy sector also addressed, wherein within the existing scheme, they have allocated 13,000 crore for making 100% vaccination of animals, so that the productivity will be improved and the quality of the product will be improved. And dairy sector, the earmark is 15,000 crore to improve the value addition of milk products. We have a largest producer of milk, and also 4,000 crore is earmarked to promote the herbal cultivation, wherein it is expected that 10 lakh hectare in 2 years, it will be promoted. It will generate around 5,000 crore income to the farmer. Similarly, 500 crore is earmarked for beekeeping, which will also have an opportunity to benefit 2 lakh beekeepers, and also 500 crores for Operation Green. Under that, 50% subsidy for transportation and 50% subsidy for the storages. It will encourage the export. And also 3 landmark reforms. One is they amended the Essential Commodities Act, wherein they deregulated some of the essential commodities. And earlier, the existing scheme is having stock limits for the traders and also processors and exporters. So because of this deregulation, the traders and exporters will definitely invest more on creating the storage structure. Similarly, other important landmark reform is Trade and Commerce Ordinance, wherein a current situation, the farmers are supposed to sell their product only in the APC market, APC mandi, and also with the licensed buyers. But here now they create a larger ecosystem wherein farmers are free to sell within the APMC and also outside the APMC non-license holder also, so that without any market fee and cess. So farmers will be having a better option to sell their product. And third reform is the Government of India come out with a national framework wherein it is like a contract farming. Both buyer and producer will come into a contract wherein the farmer will be knowing the minimum assured minimum support price, minimum prices before sowing the crop. So he will have a choice whether to go for particular crop or not. And similarly, because of this contract nature, a lot of good input technology will flow into the farmer, so farmer will be getting benefit out of this. So because of all this short-term, medium-term intervention, definitely it will give a instill confidence in the private sector. Lot of private sector participation will be there. They will pump lot of money for developing the infrastructure, and lot of technology will come into the farming sector, and lot of infrastructure will develop, and the post-harvesting structure will develop, and entrepreneurs will be emerge out of this, and farmers definitely will get benefit out of this, and the farmers' income will be definitely going to increase within few years. Thank you very much.
Perfectly on time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bella. Wow. Impressed. And yeah, like such a rich amount of different initiatives that are out there by the government across the whole value chain and across all the sectors as well. So I hope people found that really useful. And I'm sure people are going to be wanting to say, well, how do we tap into that and collaborate more? So thank you, Bella. I'm sure lots of questions. Remember, put your questions in the chat as we go, and they'll be picked up by Satender. And I hear that this is I see it's being shown live on Facebook as well. So Satender, if you can just share me the link in the chat, that'll be helpful, and we can share that out. So our third speaker is Kirti Mishra. Now, he is the co-founder of Ecociate, which is a consultancy company, but they're very specialized in the bottom of the pyramid sustainable business models. So really quite the toughest area to work in. And they're especially focused on rural enterprises and nutrition as well. So I'm always glad to see nutrition in there. So now this part is going to look at civil society, foundations, private industry, CSR implementers, and what they can do and how they can get involved, given the new COVID needs and all these government programs. So over to you, Kirti.
Thank you, Joanna. I need the screen sharing, Mr. Rana.
May I request Bala sir to kindly stop screen sharing?
Thank you, Joanna, for the introduction. This is really good. And we have fantastic presence of a lot of participants from various countries.
Now you can share, sir. I think you can
Yes.
share now.
I'm just, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, my co-panelist. Fantastic introduction and made my life easy. My topic, as Joanna you said, is about role of CSOs and foundations. For me, CSOs is a very broad term. It encompasses NGOs. It also takes care of social enterprises, companies, foundations, even companies who are into responsible agriculture. So we talk about them in this COVID time, what all they can really contribute, and what specific roles. So that's where I'll be focusing. As Ecotiate, you already told, but more importantly, we have worked last 100 days on COVID in terms of assessing what all has gone into with the farming community, and various reports been published by us. What I'm trying to project here are the roles that I envisage for the CSOs to do or the foundations to do is derived from what we have learned so far from various studies and various interactions. Must have spoken to 100, 200 farmers and more number of stakeholders to get their views. If I take what Dr. Dixit and Dr. Bala said, just to sum up, various schemes and programs have come into the picture. Thanks to COVID, finally, Indian agriculture has woken up and reforms of various kinds have come into the picture. That's amazing, and that's very important, the enabling environment for us getting created. So what does it mean? It means we are going to see the role of private sector becoming very intense, and these incentives will definitely bring in technology, investment, infrastructure, access to market intelligence, different kind of value addition through private sector. But the point is, while we look at agriculture, it is not just a typical industry. It's an industry where you have two parties. One is the farming community and other is the private sector. Here, with the enabling environment getting created and private sector coming into the picture, maybe in numbers, because that's the sector where we'll see much traction post-COVID. So the challenge is in a scenario where we have to talk about private sector and farmers, who is going to take care of the farmers in this new COVID scenario? Because there we need a lot of support in terms of capacity building, a lot of hand-holding, and a lot of empowerment for the farmers to become legitimate, equal, and as a level playing players for the farmers. That's precisely the larger point I want to tell to the participants, that this is very critical a role for us next 2 to 5 years. Then only we can see the benefits. As Dr. Dixit and Balu said, all the interventions been suggested or been coming into the agriculture sector can be leveraged if we really empower the farmers. Now, taking further to this, let's look at what has happened in last couple of months. Prior to that, the big picture scenario says we are essentially 86% farming community who are small. 61% of them are women in terms of labor force. We have 43% farmers depending on lease land, and over and above two major phenomena. 27% of the non-farm economy, which is very critical, has almost come to standstill, and they are going to dependent on the agriculture, and more so the migrants who have come back. So agriculture, which was already a 16% part of our GDP, is going to be pressurized further, and we need to take that into consideration while looking at the big picture. At the same time, when you go down to the micro scenario, what farmers told us is very simple but very critical. Farmers are saying those who are part of any CBO, any FPO, they are safe. Those who have adopted multi-cropping or sustainable practices, perhaps their vulnerability is less. Those farmers who have stored in their house during this lockdown have suffered the most, because post-harvest local infrastructure and all the systems were not there. We found the dependency of government is almost dysfunctional. I agree to Dr. Balu that a lot of intervention been suggested so far, but farmers still believe government could have done much bigger and much more. That's what coming in. And importantly, the finance, which is the backbone of any sector, we found both trading channel, which supplies money to these farmers and different actors, has also collapsed, and the financial institution, which is core, they also stopped. And because of this, the price in the market collapsed, the buyers didn't come, and so that's how we found that this whole micro scenario at the level of farmers got completely disrupted. Not only these 3 months, but if you look at the Kharif, you will find the same scenario. Thank God the statistics coming that we have more some kind of diversification happening in the agriculture sector, but people don't have money. When they have gone to the field, they have plowed the land, but next 3 to 6 months they need money, they need cash, so that the Kharif would be beneficial for them. So when you sum up what this farmers telling us is essentially there are four major challenges we are seeing now. Of course, what they're saying is production uncertainty. They don't know what to do, whether to go for multi-cropping or single or monocrop, which has been told for last 20 years. There is an uncertainty in terms of market. In terms of market has not become very transparent. We found the collaborative framework from extension to government has come to very low efficiency level, and of course the limitations at the farmer level in terms of resources. These four things for any big donors, any big CSR, big companies are becoming critical features for next 3 to 5 years in terms of empowering farmers to move into the next direction, next level of, if we want to take the benefit of this COVID. How can we do? Very simple framework so that we can discuss in a very simple format, from local production systems to proper institutional structure, to agri entrepreneurship at the backbone of this model or this new era, to local infrastructure and market. We need to work on this. And of course, cross-cutting issues like finance, IT interventions, and skill becoming critical. These 6 pillars, not necessarily every pillar is independent of other. There is a way to look at in terms of designing strategy where we have number of such components coming together. What I'll do now, I'll not go details of each. I'll take couple of them into some intensity. Let's look at the production systems. What we have seen now, we have an agriculture system which is not producing healthy food. That's for sure. And COVID has told us we need to look at immune system. We need to address malnutrition. We need to look at women's health. All these are issues. All these issues are going to tell us, let's go back sustainable production systems. What I mean, we need to look at seed. We need to look at soil. We need to look at water. We don't need to compete with China in terms of volume. Let them do that, but we need to save our land. We need to ensure that our production systems are stable, are sustainable. Leading to that, if we do that, many companies now coming for sustainable sourcing. That's a new phenomena. That's a phenomena where companies are demanding for responsibly produced crops. Can we do that? And of course, to do both and to grab the bigger markets which coming to India because of all this COVID, India becoming an attraction point, we need to look at standards, quality, and safety. When I look at standard, quality, and safety, COVID has exposed us thoroughly. And we have seen that our agriculture systems, in order to become really efficient, to become global, to become stable, we need to create systems from seed to market at every level, some kind of processes that would make the system efficient and safe. And hence, traceability to knowledge dissemination, to tracker for MIS, for food testing, to MRL, all these are critical areas. If you look at this simple framework, you'll find government has done a bit, and we need to see social enterprises, corporates, private sector to come into this picture and start looking at how they can strengthen these finer solutions, finer nuances, so that our food systems become critical. This one area, I believe, in 2 to 5 years, if we do it, then it will give a huge return back to our farmers. Now, moving forward, if you look at the institutional structure, FPO has been the backbone of Indian agriculture, but 10, 15, 20% farmers have become part of this FPO structure. We need to form more as CSOs, but not only forming FPO would work. We need to see that they are not just working from trade in, trade out, but also giving a value chain solutions to their members. Because COVID has exposed, farmers really need to go to somebody in the proximity for all the supports. And hence, if you look at the Land Tenancy Act, Social Security, Insurance, today time has come. I would request all the foundations, all the CSOs, companies to see that FPOs has a larger role, and the role of becoming an umbrella organization for the members to really come forward and depend on them, not just trade in, trade out. Moving forward, if I look at agri entrepreneurship, that's very critical. This is one important slide from my side. What I would urge, it is not just agri entrepreneurship. We just need not talk about just entrepreneurship, but they are backbone of any industry. If we are looking at agriculture as an industry, we cannot run away from them. What we need to develop now, some 10,000 such clusters of various commodities, various crops all across. In India, we have 1,000 CSR organization, 10,000 CSOs. If we put together, every organization takes care of, let's say, 50 villages, we can create a system where we promote commodity-specific, product-specific clusters. And there we have 4 major players. Of course, the consumer of that area, needs, their health, their immune systems, their malnutrition requirement, very critical. Farmer and FPO are the backbone. We need to look at agri-entrepreneur coming from mechanization, coming from food. All these entrepreneurs in the local area need to be promoted to 200,000 agri-entrepreneurs to be promoted. That we need to look at, and the market system down and all that. So this is going to be a critical area for us, and this is going to be a big measure. Similarly, if you look at local infrastructure, I already told, but for CSOs, for companies, for foundations, helping the local entrepreneurs and FPOs to assess and plan what infrastructure they need, what kind of financial leakage, because this scheme of 1 lakh crore is not just available. It has to be managed through banking system. Somebody has to go help the farmers in the new era to get this money, and of course, a lot of capacity building and support. If we move forward.
Kirti, you'll have to summarize soon.
Yeah. So the market front, if you look at APMC, everybody feeling very happy with APMC reform. My point is there are two things APMC was giving. One was price discovery mechanism. We need to find a way through social interest in entrepreneurs and many other companies to look at market intelligence system. Second is aggregation. That service, either through this 2,000 weekly markets, government is planning to strengthen as local mandis with infrastructure. Second, can every FPO become an aggregation point? Not for the commodities, but for organic products, for specialized product. Can we move to that kind of an era? And finally, I will not delve much into this, but we need to see that finance, which is very critical, need to be value chain centric, and we need to push that money to various actors. We need to bring in IT-led solution. Nothing, one cannot argue against this. And of course, huge amount of skill building, and with new innovative technology, we need to do that. If I sum up, the old book has gone. We have a new book. And if we really see an opportunity to push this growth from here, the wheel of growth, which means all these 6 parameters, if we push strategically, we may really, in future, in hindsight, we may call this 2020 as an year of watershed year, or a moment for Indian agriculture, because we can push everything to start functioning in a better way so that it benefits farmers, the farmers who have been voting for last 70 years. I think this is an opportune moment really to see that we help this segment, this community to do better and start leading a dignified life. And all these points I told are captured in this slide as a sum up, that all these elements are important and we need to push this agenda further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirti. And I love your end message, which is really positive. And how do we take advantage of this situation now to get things right? Because all the solutions are solutions that were needed before as well. So how do we make sure we really do it now when it's critical? And your very, very big point about making sure everything's done sustainably. This is the time, because we really will be putting so much in place. Okay, thank you, Kirti. That was fantastic. So we just come back now to our first speaker, Dr. Srinath Dixit from the ICRISAT Development Centre. So he's going to give some examples of activities that have been going on, especially with the COVID situation, and how they've managed to do that. And integrating this into government programs. So over to you, Srinath.
Thanks, Joanna. Well, as you rightly said, this is the time to integrate. The need of the hour is to come together for the government, for the corporate, and the civil society. So we'll now see how we have enabled this happen even before COVID, and COVID actually calls for more of this kind of examples. So I'll try to share a few examples with you as to how we kind of gave shape to this. So way back in the year 2012, we started working with the Coca-Cola Foundation in one of the most challenging areas of the country in terms of agriculture, that is in Bundelkhand, in a small area, about 1,250 hectares of land involving about 400 plus households. And we started working. When we started working, we saw that there were some traditional structures for rainwater harvesting. They were called havelis. And havelis, for those of you who know proper Hindi, havelis are generally those which are called as mansions. But in this case, in the Bundelkhand parlance, havelis are the rainwater harvesting structures. And these were the lifeline of the rain-fed agriculture, which were in a very dilapidated and degraded conditions, and they were actually existing in the right place considering the hydrological considerations of that place. So we started working with the this place, these Havelis, and if you look at this map, the main drains wherever you could see, so the red triangles are all the interventions which we took up for rainwater harvesting. So this we did with the Indian Council of Agricultural Research Institute's CAFRI, Central Agroforestry Research Institute, based in Jhansi. And look at, I don't want to go very much in detail, just want you to see these three maps here below. So in the year 2011, when we received about 1,100 millimeters of rainfall, the lot of land was still left as fallow. But when we started working in 2012 onwards, in the year 2014, we received only 780 millimeters of rainfall, in which we could bring back a lot of fallow land into cultivation. And in the year 2015, which happened to be a drought year, which received just about 600 plus millimeters of rainfall, we could create an effect of receiving almost, more than 1180 millimeters of rainfall. In other words, we try to saturate all the drains, the major drains, through water harvesting, and with this we brought in a lot of land and back into cultivation. So this was done with the help of the Coca-Cola Foundation and also the government institutes involved, and this was a perfect example of how the government institutes with their knowledge can come together, and ICRISAT can facilitate this whole thing. And also, and also, just give me a second. And also, we could really see the impact on this agriculture on this. So the total net income of agriculture of all the households put together was more than doubled, and annual income also was more than doubled. And look at the average income of households, and this was the best, very good equalizer in terms of those people who had large tracts of lands and those had very little amount of land. By improving the productivity of even the smaller patches of land, we could bridge these income gaps in the rural society. And through this, we embarked on a major effort of scaling it up with the help of the government of UP. The government of UP, after seeing our efforts in Bundelkhand in one block, came up and then asked us to take up this exercise in about 35,000 hectares across 7 districts of Bundelkhand region of UP. And we started working here in the year 2018, early 2018. And I just again want to take you through the pictures because I don't want to give you so much of data here, although there is. I would rather like to explain to you through a picture which was taken in February 2019 and another one during this year February. So between February 19 and February 20, in the intervening summer, we ended up doing a huge amount of rainwater harvesting work, which involved revival of the Havelis. And as a result, you can very well see here the amount of the area brought under cultivation nearly increased 9 times. So as a result, the total gross income also increased more than 10 times, all put together. So this is what prudent rainwater harvesting can do. And also we demonstrated that to the government that, by reviving the structures, reviving an infrastructure already existing, we could bring down the cost of harvesting rainwater per cubic meter drastically and dramatically. Look at through Havelis, we just need about 20 rupees for a meter cube harvested rainwater, whereas it can go as high as 500 rupees under certain government schemes. So with this, it's not just this, and it needs to be sustained. How do we do that? So this can be sustained only when we try to change the microclimate and also give a trajectory for farmers' income to medium-term and long-term measures. So they were all encouraged to plant teaks on their bunds, and this was made as a huge campaign by involving the school children. And this became a point where we could encourage the farmers and the society as a whole what are the ecosystem services that rainwater harvesting can give. So enhanced water resource availability, we could nearly harvest about 2.5 million cubic meters of groundwater recharge could be realized. And in situ harvesting helped about about 850 acres of fallow land came back into agriculture. This is particularly very important at this juncture, when the carrying capacity of agriculture has to be increased with the event of returning migrants. So therefore, this kind of interventions can really help us take this carrying capacity of rural areas in a very big way. And about 20,000 person days were generated by building these structures. People were trained and people were involved in this whole process in order to make them own this. And 3,000 person days were generated for migrant laborers in just about 1.5 months. And more than 10,000 person days were generated with crop intensification and agroforestry interventions. So a couple of other examples where we worked with Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. It's another Navaratna company of the government of India, where we worked in the black soils of northern Karnataka. See, here also similarly we harvested rainwater. This is a drone picture which you can see just by the side of these harvesting structures, where several of such check dams were built, and the major drain water that was flowing was made to, the water that was running was made to walk, and which was walking was made to stand, and that which was standing was made to infiltrate. So by this we were also able to improve the groundwater availability. And similar examples from Andhra Pradesh, in Kurnool, Andhra Pradesh, another very, very dry area where a similar kind of work benefited more than 20,000 farmers. And another very interesting work that we did in Chile, collective marketing in the COVID season. This happened just post-lockdown. I just want to share this example with you. Collective farming and marketing can help absorb this kind of external shocks. So a total of 130 tons of green chilies worth 39 lakh rupees was sold through either an entity called Del Monte, with whom we had some kind of an agreement initially, but when the flights stopped operating, they kind of were not able to help us with this, but they did help us to connect with us the nearby markets, where we enabled the farmers to take these things produced directly to the market and consumers. And another interesting work that we're doing in Odisha is on Odisha Livelihood Mission. So we have seen during last year's May, a similar situation. Fani cyclone devastated Puri and Khordha districts, where all the coconut gardens were destroyed. So here a lot of work in reviving the existing coconut plantation. This is again an opportunity to completely restructure the senile gardens and replant. And ICRISAT is steering this, and we're also bringing back the whole concept of scientific cultivation here. In fact, last week, during the Rath Yatra, which is considered to be the auspicious day in entire Odisha, the first planting of coconut was taken up in Puri and Khordha, a few selected villages, and where we remotely participated like this. And so the whole idea when was floated, the government of Odisha came to us and then offered that they would like to converge. I mean, they would like to use the opportunity to converge with the MNREGA program, which is running across and which has been revived in the wake of this COVID returning migrants. So I'm just trying to conclude here with showing some slides here, where there are many opportunities for the CSR partners who can come in and then fill in those strategic gaps, critical gaps, and improve the quality of the work. The government always comes in and gives a huge platform and also gives a policy direction. But when, as we all know, there are several implementation loopholes and several implementation, challenges. So when the CSR steps in and then tries to plug in these holes, the overall impact of the government, the civil society, and the CSR can always give a much better quality output than only one of us doing this. So also creation of assets, community warehouses, cold chains.
Srinath, if you
Yes.
can summarize.
Yes. This is one of the last slides. I'm there, and of course we will also need to look at reviving the whole lives associated with agriculture in terms of building social infrastructure and also helping some of the additional agricultural workforce with different skills which can also depend on agriculture, something like repair and maintenance, something on para workers in animal husbandry, and also formation and also facilitating the FPOs. So with this, we can certainly maximize the social welfare along with environmental security. We can also take very good advantage of the government policy direction and the community with their capacity building. The keywords are convergence, consortium, and capacity building. So this is just we have been working with a range of CSR partners, starting from Power Grid, JSW Foundation, Asian Paints, Coca-Cola, and very many other things. And certainly, when we join hands, we can make a difference. Thank you very much for a patient hearing, and thanks for this opportunity, BIMTECH.
Thank you, Dr. Srinath. That was great, and that concludes all the actual speaking. But just, it was really good to have Srinath's examples there of real successes with collective efforts. They were CSR, they were government, they were civil society, all working together. We couldn't stress more, I think, from those examples, the importance of livelihood initiatives, and that there is still a lot of potential in agriculture to expand those areas to develop more livelihood opportunities. So it's definitely an investment that's worthwhile. So it was inspiring to see that. So just in conclusion, until we open up for all the questions, I see there's a lot there. Some of the key things to me from that was the sustainability, that there is great opportunity to expand the livelihoods. I will add, because it tends to get left out, is not only does it need to integrate a sustainable approach, we've got to integrate nutrition. Extremely important, especially as we've seen with COVID. With every solution, it should be integrated into that. So how are we diversifying on farm? How are we ensuring more nutritious crops as well as more sustainable crops, which like the millets and the legumes? And we mustn't forget to integrate the whole gender element of that, and how are we including women in the programs, and how we are including youth, because if we want social stability, we need to include the youth as well. But this was fantastic, great examples and very practical. Hope everyone's happy with that. So now we'll open to questions. Satender, he's going to read out a few of he's been summarizing as we've been going and grouping questions. So Satender, to you.
I should start by saying that we have a group of active participants. We have a large number of questions over here. But now, right now, we'll be taking 3 to 4 questions. And if time allows, then we'll take up some more questions. So the first question is, who is there to integrate various verticals in agriculture horizontally in the value chain? If there is none, what is the way out as a business for service providers? How can we improve the agriculture labor income amid COVID-19? And what is the impact of COVID-19 on deciding price of major food crops and perishable commodity based on demand and supply? Then we have another question. How the marketing challenges for grain have changed during the lockdown?
All right, would speakers like to take a turn on that?
The first question, can you once again repeat that one, Mr. Satender Rana?
Surely,
I would like to take that first question.
Who is there to integrate various verticals in agriculture horizontally in the value chain?
Yeah.
And if there is none, what is the way out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a very, very important question, because there are several gaps in agriculture. You very rightly said there is no one agency that can really integrate these things. So that is why there are certain innovations, institutional innovations that are being thought as, like the one is the farmer producer organization. To some extent they can do this, but they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the scale, they don't have the such a very big capital to do all these things. But certainly it is better than having nothing. So at the agency level, at the district level, if one wants to really do these things, that's how we see these gaps. And that is the reason why these critical gaps need to be filled. And with the private participation in a responsible way, these gaps are thought to be built. And this is I mean, for a very long time, we left these questions unaddressed. And this is, in fact, the right time for us to address these gaps with the participation of the private entity. That are also flowing in of the investments. There are going to be huge efficiency improvement in agricultural sector. So that is what is the expectation. I'll stop here and read the other questions to the panel.
Bala or Kirti, would you like to come in with any comments?
A quick on the integration that, as Dr. Dixit is saying, is very critical. And I think the gaps, in a way, sitting slightly neutral as foundations, as CSR, with good quality manpower and good NGOs at the back end to support, I think that segment has a bigger role now to really see that this private and farmers cooperation comes in. And that's where going to the bank, going to, let's say, building skills in terms of sustainable productions or making the local clusters more robust, these entities have a larger role, and they need to come in and take the role of assessing the horizontal and vertical aspects and bring those gaps in a way that through this convergence, through this collaboration, work towards that. And it's a significant role now we see from CSOs all across to really pitch in and support.
One more thing is, actually now they announced different measures. Now while they working out the operational modalities, actually this point need to be taken care, has to be taken care. Otherwise it is very, very important. Unless it is integrated, it will not be a very successful one. The integration must be very mandatory. In the operational guidelines, they have to give a more focus for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Bala. Shatendra, we'll do another set of questions.
Yes.
More coming in.
So the second question is also very important because of COVID, our agricultural laborers, they are also worst affected. So the second question is, how can we improve their income in India?
See, this is where it's not only the agricultural laborers that were already there in these villages. We have actually added more number of people who have come from cities with no very great skills in any other things. Even if they had any skills, there is no matching industry to absorb those skills. So in effect, they will also have to find something to depend on from the agriculture sector only. So the only way we can really involve them is to, again, I kept this saying all through my presentation, is by enhancing the carrying capacity of agriculture, carrying capacity of not only the humans, carrying capacity of the livestock. When you improve the carrying capacity of humans and livestock, if you start using the additional mouths to be fed, also there are not just one mouth, there are also additional hands that we must recognize, that these hands will have to add to developing and then generating value in terms of like I said, when we improve the ability of a particular abandoned land to come back to cultivation, then it will also give additionally the work for these people who have come back. So we don't have very many choices when these people have returned. We will have to see that they are gainfully employed and also gainfully fed. And that's why here nutrition also comes in very, very important as such, because the people that have come back, many of them have gone through a lot of hardships. Many of them might have carried not necessarily COVID, many other diseases as well. They must have emaciated, they must have undergone some kind of a stress. So all these things, if that has to be met, we have to intensify agriculture. Intensification, when we talk about intensification, it is sustainable intensification we should talk. It's not just, you intensify at the cost of the resources. We already have resources which are already under stress and very fragile. So it will have to, we have to build on vertically. We'll have to build the value chains. We'll have to build the vertically. We'll also add multiple enterprises to this one, diversify agriculture, and get gradually into the secondary agriculture. And this is how we can employ both the agricultural laborers and even to the agricultural, small agricultural families that have now additional hands to work for. So that also can be employed. My panelists
Thank you. Thanks, Srinath. Kirti, you wanted to add to that?
Very quickly, what you said, sir, is very important. I think we should see this as an opportunity, because every time we see as a problem, now here is an opportunity to strengthen the local economic clusters or local resource-based kinds of opportunities. And that's where I think 4 things we need to do. One, of course, as you said, the land, access to land. We have land, and there are Tenancy Act, which is also allowing. Second is skilling. We have to see that they become skilled to certain aspects. Of course, continuous handholding for some time to come, the third area. Fourth, push them towards entrepreneurship. If we do that, what would happen? We have a local, robust clusters in terms of agriculture. And if we create that, that would then push us towards a global, connecting to the global chains. So we need to see them as an opportunity, then not just as a problem. I think that's going to be my larger.
I think I'd like to add, when you are encouraging entrepreneurship, to make sure the markets are supported in some way, and you really help with that, because entrepreneurs also struggle and we forget to work from that consumer side as well. So maybe we
can you take one
question of Bala, you be ready for that.
Can you take one quick question? I think this is important in terms the youth want to take up agriculture as an entrepreneurship. So is there any single window authority for entrepreneurship in agri and food startups?
Well, I mean, as far as this single window approach, different states have different approaches. So again, we all recognize that agriculture is a state subject, and different states have different kinds of approaches to this. And I think, you know, with this kind of a push, as the agriculture sector is being under pressure, this is again an opportunity where if there is when there is a threat, there is also a challenge. There is also a side by side. The other side of the challenge is always an opportunity. So if you look at that one, the government should more be willing to cultivate this kind of a single window opportunities. At the moment, like in industry, I don't see very many states practicing it. Maybe Kirti might like to add something here.
Very quickly, sir, what I found in certain livelihood missions or bilateral program, for example, Tamil Nadu, my colleague from World Bank managing that, they have block level incubation centers for agri entrepreneurs to come up. Those kind of models needs to spread, but that is almost like a single window where you go, you showcase your strength, then they can give you a range of supports to grow. So it's not happening everywhere, but we have an opportunity to really bring this livelihood missions to level like this and offer the youth to venture into this agri entrepreneurs.
I think Bala, probably Manage has also contributed in those areas as well.
Actually, Manage is also having an incubation center. Similarly, many institutes like Agriculture University, even TNU is having an incubation center. Many Agriculture University, ICR Institute, they are all having an incubation center. They are all nurturing the entrepreneurship. So every state, they can identify such institute and associate with such institute. Even ICR, Millet, they are also promoting incubation. So many ICR institute, they are promoting. So they have to identify and associate with.
Even ICRISAT has an incubation center, but the question is whether the states are able to mainstream this as an instrument to get this services across their different districts and blocks.
Yeah, that's the point where we need to take it to the level of block policies, or below. Yeah. That's where the real change would happen.
Yeah, I think so. And connecting it in with all the other initiatives. Like you said, IIMR, I noticed DIACAR is online as well. ICRISAT has incubators, lots of there.
Yes.
They may be for the state, or some are actually across the country, but for specific products and digital agriculture, etc. But linking it and the government giving it more support in that value chain is critical. Yeah. I don't know if the moderator's allowed to answer. Okay. I think we may have to close there because we're right on time. But we will attempt to answer some more of these questions and reach out to people because there were a lot of questions. Apologies, we can't answer all. But we'll take advantage of these experts while we still have them to get some answers put together and some ideas. We really appreciate there's been a huge interest in this and people register. We'll also share the PowerPoints with everybody who's shared their contacts, and we'll also share the link of this afterwards because it has been recorded. So just a big thank you to Narendra Sharma. He is from BIMTECH, which is the Birla Institute of Management Technologies. He was the brain behind doing this and pulling everybody together. And we had many discussions to work out what would be the most practical, solution-based sort of webinar that we could bring forward. So based on that, I thank our 3 speakers who have been fantastic and really appreciate it's not just the time at the webinar, it's the thinking behind it on what would be most helpful. And all the government schemes and the CSR companies and civil societies that are behind these examples as well, that are actually the ones that are making all this work. And of course, thanks to Satendra Rana, who's there technically behind everything and pulling all this together. Thank you. Excited to have about 1,500 people register. So it was huge, showed a great success. So thank you. Any final thank you from anybody else? We're welcome before we switch off.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ranaji.
Thank you.